My wife threw me out for demanding a DNA test for our newborn. 6 weeks later, I came back with the results. Her reaction said everything. I never thought I'd be that guy. You know, the one who questions everything after years of what seemed like a solid marriage. My name is Lucas. I'm 34 years old. Been with my wife Sophia for 5 years total, married for 3 of them. We have a son, Henry, who just turned 3 back in July, and our daughter Ava was born in early September, so she's about 2 months old now. Life was supposed to be perfect, right? 2 healthy kids, decent jobs, a nice apartment in Seattle. But something fell off, and I couldn't shake it. It started small, these little things that didn't add up. Ava had this bright red hair, like really red, almost orange in certain light. Now, I've got dark brown hair, basically black, and Sophia has light brown hair, kind of mousy blonde. Henry came out looking exactly like me, dark hair, my nose, my eyes. But Ava? She looked nothing like either of us. I know genetics can be weird, I'm not stupid, but red hair is recessive, meaning both parents need to carry the gene. I started Googling at 2 in the morning while Sophia was nursing Ava, reading about hair color inheritance and probability charts. The numbers weren't in my favor. I remembered Sophia mentioning once that her whole family had brown or blonde hair, no redheads anywhere. My side. Same deal, browns and blacks going back generations according to my mom. So where did this red hair come from? Things got worse when I started noticing other stuff. Sophia had been distant since Ava was born, barely looked at me, always had an excuse when I tried to talk. She was on her phone constantly, texting someone, and when I'd walk into the room, she'd flip it face down real quick. One night about 3 weeks after Ava was born, I couldn't sleep, so I went to grab some water from the kitchen. Sophia's laptop was open on the counter. She must have forgotten to close it. I know I shouldn't have, but I looked. Her Facebook Messenger was up, and I saw a conversation with some guy named Alex. I scrolled up a bit, my hands shaking. Most of it was normal work stuff. They were colleagues at her marketing firm, but then I saw messages from about a year ago, right around the time she would have gotten pregnant with Ava. The messages weren't explicit, but they were flirty, way too friendly for just coworkers. My stomach dropped. I closed the laptop and went back to bed, lay there staring at the ceiling until sunrise. I started paying more attention to Sophia's social media, scrolling back through old photos. There were tons of pictures from work events, holiday parties, team building stuff. And there he was, Alex, this tall guy with bright red hair and a beard, standing next to Sophia in at least a dozen photos. They looked friendly, maybe too friendly in some shots. His arm around her shoulder in one picture from a Christmas party that would have been exactly 9 or 10 months before Ava was born. I felt sick. I showed the photos to my brother one afternoon when I stopped by his place. He tried to reassure me that coworkers take photos together all the time, but I could see it in his eyes, that little bit of doubt. He suggested I just talk to Sophia, work it out like adults. I wanted to, I really did. But every time I tried to bring up anything serious, Sophia would shut down or change the subject, or suddenly Ava would need something. The final straw came in late October, about 6 weeks after Ava was born. I was giving Henry a bath while Sophia put Ava down for a nap. My phone was dead and I needed to take a picture of Ava for my mom, so I grabbed Sophia's phone. I accidentally opened her messages and saw a recent text from Alex. "Can't wait to meet her properly soon," it said. Meet her properly? What did that even mean? Why would he need to meet my daughter properly, unless he thought she was something more to him? I screenshot it before I could think twice, sent it to myself, then deleted the evidence. My hands were trembling so bad I almost dropped it. That night after the kids were asleep, I confronted her. I told her I wanted a paternity test for Ava. The look on her face, I'll never forget it. Pure shock, then anger, then something else, maybe fear? She exploded, asking how I could accuse her of something like that. I showed her the screenshot of Alex's text. She went pale, completely white. She stammered that it wasn't what I thought, that he was just being nice, that everyone at work had seen Ava's pictures. But her voice was shaking, and she wouldn't look me in the eye. I stood my ground and said if she had nothing to hide, she should take the test and prove me wrong. That's when she really lost it, screaming about trust and marriage. "If you don't trust me after 5 years together, get out," she yelled, pointing at the door. "Get out of this apartment right now." So I did. I packed a bag, kissed Henry goodbye while he slept, looked at Ava one last time in her crib, and left. I drove to my brother's place in the middle of the night, my whole world falling apart. The next morning, I ordered a paternity test kit from Amazon, paid extra for next-day delivery. I swabbed my own cheek that evening and stored it in the envelope they provided. Now I just needed Ava's sample. I knew Sophia's schedule. She had a big client presentation on Thursday and would be at the office all morning. Our neighbor, Mrs. Chun, usually watched Ava for a few hours when Sophia had important meetings, since daycare didn't take infants under 3 months. Thursday came, and I drove to our apartment building, my heart pounding. I waited in my car until I saw Sophia leave, then gave it another 10 minutes. Mrs. Chen opened the door, looking surprised to see me. "Lucas, I didn't know you were stopping by," she said. I gave her some excuse about forgetting important work documents in my home office. Ava was sleeping in her portable bassinet in our living room. I went to my office, grabbed some random files to make it look legitimate, then walked over to the bassinet. Mrs. Chun was in the kitchen making tea. I pulled out the swab from my pocket, my hands shaking, and gently rubbed it against the inside of Ava's cheek. She stirred a little, but didn't wake up. I sealed it in the envelope, shoved it in my jacket pocket, and left as quickly as I could without seeming suspicious. That afternoon, I mailed both samples to the lab. The website said results would take 4 to 6 weeks. Now all I could do was wait. Living at my brother's place was hell, not because he wasn't supportive, but because every single day felt like a year. I was crashing on his couch, waking up at dawn to check my email obsessively, then going through the motions of pretending to be a functional human being. Work was a nightmare. I couldn't focus on anything. My boss pulled me aside twice asking if everything was okay at home. What was I supposed to say? That I was waiting to find out if my 2-month-old daughter was actually mine? That my marriage was probably over? I just told him I was dealing with some personal stuff, and he backed off. My coworkers definitely noticed something was wrong, though. I could see them whispering when I walked by. 3 weeks went by, and Sophia finally started responding to my texts, but only about Henry. She'd send me pictures of him at the park or eating breakfast, never mentioned Ava, never asked how I was doing. It was like she was punishing me with silence. I asked if I could come see Henry, and she said only if I apologized for accusing her and dropped the whole paternity test thing. I refused, told her I'd already sent the samples to the lab, and there was no going back now. She stopped responding after that. My brother tried his best to keep me sane. We'd sit up late drinking beer, and he'd tell me that maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was some genetic explanation for Ava's red hair that I didn't know about. But even he couldn't hide the doubt in his voice. One night about a month in, he asked me what I'd do if the test came back positive, if Ava was actually mine. I honestly didn't know. Could I go back to Sophia after all this? Could I forget about the suspicious messages, the distance, the lies? Probably not. And if the test came back negative? Well, that was obvious. I'd be done, completely done. I started looking at divorce lawyers online, reading about custody arrangements and asset division. In Washington state, you need to be separated for 90 days before you can even file for divorce, and the whole process takes at least 3 to 4 months minimum. I bookmarked a few law firm websites, made a list of questions to ask. I started checking Sophia's social media like a crazy person, which I know is unhealthy, but I couldn't help it. She posted photos of Henry at his daycare's fall festival in early November, some cute thing where the 3-year-olds dressed up as little pumpkins. I should have been there. She posted pictures of Ava sleeping, captioned with stuff like, "My perfect angel," and "blessed to be her mama," with a bunch of heart emojis. The comments were full of her friends saying how beautiful Ava was, how much she looked like Sophia. A few people asked where I was, why I wasn't in any recent photos. Sophia never responded to those comments. I noticed Alex liked every single post about Ava, every single one. That made my blood boil. I wanted to comment something, call him out publicly, but my brother talked me down. "Don't make it worse, man," he said. "Wait for the results. Then you'll know what to do." Week 5 came and went. No email from the lab. I called them, and some rep told me it could take up to 8 weeks during busy periods, that I needed to be patient. Patient. I was losing my mind. I wasn't sleeping, barely eating. I'd lost maybe 10 pounds since leaving the apartment. My mom kept calling asking why she hadn't seen the baby in weeks, why Sophia wasn't answering her messages. I had to tell her something, so I said we were having some marital problems and needed space. She immediately wanted to come over and talk, fix everything like she always tried to do, but I told her to stay away for now. That hurt her feelings, but I couldn't deal with her questions on top of everything else. Then finally, 6 weeks and 3 days after I mailed the samples, I got the email. It was early December, a Tuesday morning. I was sitting in a conference room pretending to pay attention to a budget meeting. My phone buzzed. I glanced down and saw DNA test results ready in the subject line. My heart stopped. I excused myself, said I needed to use the bathroom, and basically ran to my car in the parking lot. I sat there in the driver's seat, hands shaking so bad I could barely unlock my phone. I opened the email, Clicked the link to the secure results portal, entered my password. The page loaded slowly, way too slowly, and then there it was in black and white. Probability of paternity, 0%. 0. The report went on with all this scientific explanation about genetic markers and alleles, but I couldn't read any of it. 0% meant Ava wasn't mine. She wasn't my daughter. My chest felt like someone had reached in and ripped my heart out. Part of me had known, had suspected all along, but seeing it confirmed in an official lab report was different. I sat there in my car for probably 20 minutes, just staring at the screen, reading that zero over and over again. I drove straight to a law office I'd researched, someplace downtown that specialized in family law. The receptionist said they were fully booked, but I must have looked desperate because she asked someone and they agreed to see me for a quick consultation. I met with this attorney named Mrs. Rodriguez, mid-50s, kind eyes, but tough demeanor. I showed her the DNA results on my phone and explained the whole situation. She listened without interrupting, took notes, then laid out my options. Rodriguez said filing for divorce would take 4 months minimum in Washington, probably longer if Sophia contests anything. Child support for Henry would still be my responsibility, obviously, but Ava wasn't legally mine, so I had no financial obligation there. She asked if I wanted to pursue custody of Henry, and I said yes, as much as possible. She warned me that courts usually favor mothers, especially with young kids, but we could try for joint custody, maybe even primary if we played our cards right given the circumstances. I paid her retainer right there, $1,500 on my credit card. She said she'd draft the divorce papers, and I could pick them up in 2 days. I also asked her to print out the DNA results, official copies that I could show Sophia. I needed her to see it in black and white, needed her to face what she'd done. I picked up the divorce papers and DNA results from Rodriguez's office on Thursday afternoon. 2 manila envelopes that represented the end of my marriage, the end of the life I thought I had. I sat in my car for a while, building up the courage to drive to the apartment. My brother had offered to come with me for moral support, but I told him this was something I needed to do alone. The drive across Seattle felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body. I'd rehearsed what I was going to say 100 times in my head, but now that the moment was actually here, my mind went blank. I parked in my old spot, the one I'd parked in for 3 years, and walked up to the 3rd floor. I still had my key, but I knocked instead. Sophia opened the door holding Ava, and the look on her face was hard to read. Surprise maybe, or resignation, like she'd been expecting this. "Can I come in?" I asked. She stepped aside without saying anything. The apartment looked exactly the same, but felt completely foreign. Henry was on the living room floor playing with his toy trucks, and when he saw me, his whole face lit up. "Daddy!" he yelled, running over and hugging my legs. I picked him up, held him tight, fighting back tears. This was my son, my actual son, and I'd barely seen him in 6 weeks because of his mother's lies. I put Henry back down and told him to keep playing with his trucks while Mommy and Daddy talked. Sophia sat on the couch with Ava still in her arms, and I stayed standing. I pulled out both envelopes from my jacket and placed them on the coffee table in front of her. "What's this?" she asked quietly, but I think she already knew. I told her to open the first one, the DNA results. She shifted Ava to one arm and picked up the envelope with her free hand. I watched her face as she read it, watched the color drain from her cheeks, watched her eyes fill with tears. The paper was shaking in her hand. "Lucas, I can explain," she started, but I cut her off. I told her there was nothing to explain. 0% paternity was pretty self-explanatory. The silence that followed felt like forever. Ava started fussing and Sophia just sat there crying, not even trying to comfort the baby. Finally, she spoke, and what came out was probably the most honest she'd been with me in over a year. She told me it happened once, just once, at the company Christmas party 14 months ago, back in November of last year. She'd had too much to drink. Alex had been flirting with her all night, and they ended up in his car in the parking garage. She said it was stupid and meaningless, and she regretted it immediately. She thought it didn't matter because we'd been trying for another baby anyway, and when she got pregnant a few weeks later, she convinced herself it was mine. She said she never told Alex, never confirmed anything with him, just let him wonder. But when Ava was born with that bright red hair, she knew. She knew, and she said nothing, just hoped I wouldn't notice or question it. "I was going to tell you eventually," she sobbed. "I swear I was. I just didn't know how." I asked her about his text message, the one about meeting Ava properly. She admitted he'd been asking questions, getting suspicious, wanting to meet his daughter. "He wants to be involved, Lucas," she said, her voice breaking. "He's been pushing me to tell you the truth so he can be part of her life." That made it even worse somehow. knowing this guy had been waiting in the wings the whole time. I told her to open the second envelope, the divorce papers. She looked at them like they were a death sentence, which I guess in a way they were. The death of our marriage, our family, everything we'd built. She begged me not to do this, said we could work it out, go to counseling, start over. But I was done, completely emotionally checked out. I told her my lawyer would be in touch about custody arrangements for Henry. That's when she really panicked, asking what I meant by that. I explained calmly that I wanted primary custody of Henry, that I'd already found a two-bedroom apartment closer to my work in Ballard, that I was prepared to fight for my son. She started screaming then, saying I couldn't take Henry away from her, that he needed his mother. I reminded her that she was the one who cheated, she was the one who lied, and no judge would look favorably on that. Henry looked up from his trucks, confused and scared. "Come here, buddy," I said, kneeling down. "Daddy has to go, but I'll see you real soon, okay?" He hugged me tight and whispered, "I miss you, Daddy," into my ear. That nearly broke me. I stood up, looked at Sophia one last time, and walked out. The next 4 months were brutal, probably the worst of my entire life. Lawyers, mediation sessions, court dates, the whole nightmare. Sophia fought me on everything at first, especially custody of Henry. But then something shifted around January. Maybe she realized she couldn't win, or maybe she just felt guilty. Her lawyer reached out to mine with a proposal. I'd get primary custody of Henry. She'd have him every other weekend and one evening per week. I'd have no financial responsibility for Ava, and we'd split our assets 50-50. I agreed immediately. The divorce was finalized in late March, nearly 5 months after I'd walked out. I'd already moved into my new apartment in Ballard back in February, a decent two-bedroom place with a small balcony. Henry got his own room. I let him pick out new bedding with dinosaurs on it, his favorite. The first few weeks were rough. He kept asking why Mommy wasn't there, why he couldn't see baby Ava every day. I tried to explain it in 3-year-old terms, told him that Mommy and Daddy loved him very much, but couldn't live together anymore. He seemed to accept it eventually. Kids are resilient like that. Through mutual friends and occasional awkward pickups when Sophia came to get Henry, I pieced together what happened with her and Alex. Turns out he actually wanted to step up, wanted to be a father to Ava. He'd been pressuring Sophia for months to leave me and move in with him, even before I found out the truth. After our divorce was finalized in March, Sophia didn't really have a choice. She couldn't afford the old apartment on her own with a newborn, couldn't handle everything alone without support. So she moved in with Alex in April, into his place in Capitol Hill. But anyone could see she wasn't happy. When she'd come to pick up Henry, she looked exhausted, defeated. Alex would sometimes be in the car waiting, and the tension between them was visible even from a distance. She'd traded one life for another and clearly regretted it. I heard from a former coworker of hers that Alex was controlling, constantly questioning where she went, who she talked to. Guess he didn't trust her after how their relationship started. Imagine that. Sophia had made her bed and now she had to lie in it, living with a man she didn't love, raising a baby that reminded her every day of her biggest mistake. Henry's visits with Sophia became less frequent over time. At first it was every other weekend like the agreement said, but then she'd cancel sometimes, say Ava was sick or she had to work or some other excuse. By summer it was down to maybe once or twice a month. Henry would come back from her place quiet and withdrawn, and it'd take him a day or two to get back to normal. I never badmouthed Sophia in front of him, never told him what really happened, but kids pick up on things. He started asking to stay home instead of going to Mommy's house. I couldn't force him to go if he didn't want to, so the visits became even more sporadic. Part of me felt bad for Sophia, losing both her son and her old life. But then I'd remember the lies, the deception, the 6 weeks I spent in agony waiting for those test results. She'd made her choices, and these were the consequences. I started seeing a therapist in April, working through the betrayal and trust issues. It helped, talking to someone objective who didn't know either of us. My therapist said it would take time to heal, that I shouldn't rush into anything new until I'd processed everything. By June, I was starting to feel almost normal again, or at least a new version of normal. Henry was thriving, doing great in his new daycare near my apartment. I'd established a routine: work, pick up Henry, dinner, bath time, bedtime stories. Simple, predictable, honest. Everything my marriage hadn't been. One Saturday in July, I was at the park with Henry when I met someone. Her name was Amelia. She was there with her nephew, and we started talking while the kids played on the swings. She was funny and easy to talk to, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than anger or sadness. We exchanged numbers, Went for coffee the next week while Henry was at Sophia's. On our third date, she asked about my past, why a young single dad was on the dating scene. I gave her the short version, told her I'd recently gotten divorced, that it was complicated. That's a long story. I said, maybe someday I'll tell you the whole thing. She smiled and said she'd wait until I was ready. As I drove home that night, I realized something important. I trusted my gut instinct about Ava, about Sophia, about everything. And even though it destroyed my marriage, it also saved me from living a lie. I had my son, I had my integrity, and slowly but surely, I was building a new life. Sophia was stuck in a loveless situation with a man she didn't even want, seeing her real son maybe once or twice a month, living with the consequences of one drunken mistake. That had to count for something. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.